You a long way from home, partner. Who, me? Oh, you ain't know? I guess you didn't catch my technology presentation. Well, for those of you who didn't, my name is Christopher Works, and today I'm going to take you on a self-guided tour of Linda Stein's article, The Best of Both Worlds, Teaching Basic Writers in Class and Online. We're going to go through this article like corn through a goose in hopes of filtering out some interesting kernels of knowledge that she compiled with the help of several sources. We're going to briefly go through her original article as well, just to get this pony going, and then round up and explore the sources she dives into along the way. Them spinning words are getting to me. Maribel, can you come in here and help me read this?
The Best of Both Worlds, Teaching Basic Writing in Class and Online by Linda Stein. The key to write well is to write often and heavily revise.
She don't waste much time getting to her point, does she, Maribel?
The computer, theoretically, can help accomplish both tasks.
I assume that would work for anybody except you.
The best test of a writing course is whether it makes students more likely to use writing in their lives.
Now that there quote's by Peter Elbow. One of Stein's most substantial sources that she relies on is Elbow, and we are going to delve into his article that this quote comes from in just a second. Stein takes the previous quote of Peter Elbow's directly from his article entitled
Reflections on Academic Discourse, How It Relates to Freshmen and Colleagues.
In this article, it is directly stated that
Elbow is unhappy with solely teaching academic discourse.
Peter Elbow basically just sees academic discourse as only one part of a discourse community. What he advocates is teaching a more well-rounded approach to discourse that would include other types of discourse beyond the academic setting. He has noted, however, that
academic discourse is a power language.
Even though he notes this, though, and somewhat advocates teaching it, he is also further quoted as saying,
academic discourse is not often used after college.
Thus, while teaching students how to succeed within college, he thinks it's important to teach them something else that will help them exceed outside the boundaries of their campus.
He would rather instructors focus on teaching discourse that tries to render experience rather than explain it.
One of Elbow's most stinging complaints basically states that
the use of academic discourse often masks a lack of general understanding.
In his classes, he has noted that he would rather students use regular voices because
the vernacular helps them talk turkey.
Elbow believes that if you can't explain things outside of academic discourse in a regular tone and everyday language, that you basically don't know what you're talking about.
Teaching academic discourse is not bad, it's just limiting.
He states that it's still important to teach academic discourse, but you must understand, if you're going to teach it, what its limits are as well.
Its formality can be stifling.
Elbow is also concerned that
teaching academic discourse affirms a set of social and authority relations.
Basically, he thinks that if you're teaching academic discourse, you're teaching students to buckle under the current hierarchy and that you're enforcing power relations as they are. He is also concerned that
the price we pay for a voice of authority is a style that excludes ordinary readers and often makes us sound like an insecure or guarded person showing off.
Elbow is worried that academic discourse is just a pretentious type of language that keeps people from being able to understand what is going on within the academy. He sees it as basically more of a way to keep others out than to actually bring people in. He ends his essay by stating that one of the biggest problems with academic discourse is that
academic discourse varies.
There is not one set of standards held up for all of what is considered academic discourse, and thus it's nearly impossible to teach students academic discourse and to also expect them to uphold it. Elbow's article is important to Stein because it also emphasizes the importance of teaching students things that they're actually going to use. Now let's jump back on the Stein bandwagon as we pull this train further out to pasture. It is important to note that Stein
specifically is interested in the benefits and drawbacks of hybrid courses as they relate to basic writing students. There are many drawbacks to online instruction,
such as
accessibility.
Not every student enrolled in an online class is going to be able to get a computer. They really shouldn't be enrolled in an online class if they don't have one, but it does limit the amount of time a student can use with a computer if they have to jump on a bus and head down to the library every time they need to use one.
Politics.
Some claim that technological advances are always political, and that the way the technology used is always for political means. This means that sometimes those in power will limit technological instruction so that the people learning it can only master certain tasks and work within their factories, mines, and labor camps.
Pedagogy.
And this actually leads us into the next two articles that Stein relies upon. Stein's discussion of the pedagogical issues associated with online instruction leads her directly into relying upon an article entitled
Distant Voices, Teaching and Writing in a Culture of Technology by Chris M. Anson.
Anson's article notes that
computers create many pedagogical problems and opportunities.
He also notes that
technological opportunities available have not been fully realized.
What he basically means by this is that instructors currently are not using technology to its full ability within the classroom. He states that
text continues to dominate,
but
the future is today.
We could end up using all of the technological advances available to us today to create some far out of this world, crazy classes that you could hardly even imagine. Anson goes into some pretty detailed description of a hypothetical class in his article that fulfills these characteristics. Though Anson starts off basically kissing the rump of technology, he does admit towards the end that there are a lot of
technological problems
that can be encountered, such as
isolation.
When students engage in an online class, they get physically separated from their other fellow classmates and their instructor, which can cause some extreme feelings of loneliness and disconnection with what is going on in the classroom. Another problem that Anson articulates involves the possibility that institutions will start hiring
lower numbers of full-time salary members,
which may also lead to
lower pay for instructors.
Now, this is particularly important for anyone planning on being an instructor or who is currently an instructor at the moment. Anson hypothesizes that technology can lead to lower numbers of full-time salary members because institutions may decide, instead of hiring 5 to 10 to 15 to 500 different instructors, they only want to hire one. And then they hire this one, and he makes videos for each and every class that he is in charge of. What this means is that there are less instructors teaching classes. What they do with all the other instructors, hypothetically, is that they would put them into lower, more menial jobs, grading the papers that come out of this one instructor's class. In regards to technological advances, Anson thus states,
"We cannot let the revolution sweep over us. We need to guide it, resisting its economic allure in cases where it weakens the principles of our teaching."
oh yeah. Stein's use of Anson's article then leads her into the use of another article entitled
"Community Development Among Distance Learners, Temporal and Technological Dimensions" by Caroline Haythornthwaite, Michelle M. Kasmer, and Jennifer Robbins.
This article centers on a qualitative study conducted by the followingly mentioned three hard-to-pronounce named people. Well, really only Haythornthwaite is difficult to pronounce. The aim of their study was to find what aspects of online communication help students to create and form communities while enrolled in distance education programs. For the purpose of their study, 17 students engaged in the Library Education Experimental Program at the University of Illinois were interviewed by phone over the course of an entire year. Interviewers asked participants about their feelings of connectedness toward instructors, administrators, and other students in the program. The findings suggest, though I've never seen a finding suggest anything, as previous research that the article mentions also reinforces, that
online communities function in similar ways in which face-to-face communities function.
Which means they also rely on
strong communal ties that increase the flow of information among all members, the availability of support, commitment to group goals, cooperation among members, and satisfaction with group efforts.
One of the more important things to come out of this article was the discovery of
aspects of online communities that mirror traditional communities, which include recognition of members and non-members, a shared history, a common meeting place, commitment to a common purpose, adoption of normative standards of behavior, and emergence of hierarchy and roles.
They had a pretty long reference list at the end of the article that was quite impressive, and among the names noted were Haythornthwaite, it's so much fun to say that name, and Kasmer as well. They relied upon themselves as sources in their article, which is somewhat popular these days, I guess, following in the example of George Hillix Jr. and others of the sort. The article is important for current instructors because it discusses the importance of establishing connectedness, not only between an instructor and their class, but between students as well. In regards to establishing connections, it is also useful to instructors to note that synchronous communication was found much more effective in this article at accomplishing this task than asynchronous communication, which should not come as a surprise to any instructor that's used to working with either of the two. Stein's concern with this particular article centers on its description of cyberspace communication, which she explains by stating,
they have characterized this environment as text without a voice, voice without body language, class attendance without seating arrangements.
Holy jeez there, Maribel, I don't think that's the type of body language they referring to. You can't capture the full extent of that with online instruction. The next source that Stein's discussion brings her to is found in an article called
Technology Transforms Writing and the Teaching of Writing by Wendy R. Leibowitz.
In her article, Ms. Leibowitz attempts to give a balanced review of the advantages and disadvantages associated with teaching, writing in electronic environments. She begins her paper by first addressing the many different disadvantages that can be associated with students writing their essays while being aided by a computer. The main complaint that she continually goes back to is that
in regards to students writing, quantity does not necessarily equate with quality.
Ms. Leibowitz believes that although computers may give students the ability to produce papers beyond what they would be able to do without them, that this does not necessarily lead to good writing. She believes instead that
electronic writing encourages sloppiness.
Ironically, though, Ms. Leibowitz also believes that
technology can be used to combat problems created by it.
Some of the ways in which Ms. Leibowitz believes that students could use technology to combat the problems caused by it is by having them submit their papers into an online environment in which individuals beyond the classroom can comment upon their work so they feel more committed to creating a decent product. She also believes that having them frequently print out their work so that they can read over it in hard copy might help them to overcome the sloppiness that electronic writing often encourages. Ms. Leibowitz goes straight to the horse's mouth for her sources and relies mainly upon instructors and other people who've had experience inside the composition classroom. Some other important things to note about Ms. Leibowitz's article is that
she relies on qualitative data,
and she
explores both the positive and negative effects of technology on instruction.
Her research
could possibly lead to some promising empirical research.
Stein uses Leibowitz's article to quote one of her sources, Perlman, who addresses the elasticity of electronic revision by stating,
people just start a sentence and then go back and move things around. The computer screen is elastic and therefore the composing process is elastic.
Stein's discussion incorporating these different sources leads her to the conclusion that
teachers have to keep up with the pace of technological change.
She also decides that
teachers may benefit least from technology.
What this basically means is that technology may be more work for teachers than anyone else. They may not see any direct benefits other than students gaining more knowledge. Because of the immense impact that technology can have upon students, though, Stein also asserts that
basic writing instructors should carefully consider technological choices.
In regard to the technophobic students out there, and I can definitely relate with them, Stein's advice is that
students should just do it.
What she means by that is you're going to have to jump in and you're going to either swim or you're going to sink. And that's the way I learned, boy. Stein basically believes that you're doing a disservice to any student if you allow them to stray away from technology. Technology is part of every aspect of society, just about. It is a conversation they need to be engaged in because, as she has stated,
we need to help our students become part of this persistent conversation. As skilled listeners and persuasive speakers, if we are going to help them find and value their own voices.
And hybrid classes allow instructors the opportunity to accomplish this goal by giving them the advantages associated with both online and face-to-face instruction, which, when you boil it down, is basically the whole overriding theme of Stein's entire article. I hope you've enjoyed listening to us. Thank you very much.